I should get one.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. This is the second meeting of 2021, and we welcome everyone to our regular Village Council meeting. And with that, I think I'm going to ask Brianne to call the roll, please.
Hausch.
I'm here.
Curlis.
Yeah, here.
Krieger.
Present.
McQueen. Here. Stokes.
Here.
All are present and accounted for.
All right, excellent. And I think oftentimes Judy adds that we've got Chief Carlson. We've got, of course, our village solicitor, Brianne Parcels. We have Public Works Director, Johnny Burns. Our planning and zoning experts, Denise Swinger. And I think, well, and then of course we have Village Manager Josue Salmaran, as we always do, in the mix. So welcome everyone, and thanks again. Got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. I want to begin by highlighting any announcements, and Josue, if you want to kick it off.
Yes, thank you, Brian. We want to share with council and the public that we are experiencing some staffing challenges as we have 4 employees that have tested positive. This staffing challenge is impacting our operations in several ways, but we want to reassure both council and the public that we are still equipped to deliver all essential services. As council is aware, we do a lot of contingency planning in the administration, and among those contingency plans prior to COVID was how do we ensure the delivery of essential services such as public safety, water, sanitary services. So with COVID, we've had the opportunity to implement some of those contingency plans, and we had to do it in this instance where we are operating both sanitary and water plant with 1 staff at each site, and the site is limited only to those individuals, and that's to ensure the continuation of services, essential services to our residents. One service that the public has seen and will continue to notice the impact is with our utility windows. As a direct result of the 1 case and COVID exposures, we've had to close our utility window, and as a result, it has created inconvenience for many residents to be able to pay their bills in person, on cash at the window. We're fortunate that the police department has stepped in and has received some of those payments, but want to remind the public there are multiple ways of paying their utility bills. That is online via the phone. They can mail in their payment, and they can also do bill pay through their bank. Many of the banks offer bill pay and remit the utility payments to us. So there's several ways that folks can make their payments. Philip, and it's been a practice in our organization that we have this information publicly available on our website. So how to make those payments are available on our website. We've also posted them on the social media channels that we manage. So to end, we'll continue to provide ways of providing customer services to our residents, and we continue to deliver the essential services that our constituents and residents rely on us for.
Thanks, Josue. And I assume we can say to the public that we understand some of those challenges, and no one should be stressed out about, not being able to get to the window to pay their bills, and we're gonna accommodate any of those challenges, right?
Absolutely, yes. We'll accommodate those individuals. We are waiving late fees. I know last night I was on social media corresponding with a few constituents, providing them options. So yes, of course, we're here to help. We have been here helping through the pandemic, and certainly we will continue to do our part.
All right, thanks for that, Josue. Lisa Krieger, I know you had a couple announcements.
Thank you. At the last council meeting, I made a comment at the beginning to send our thoughts out to the people of Washington, D.C., because I was so concerned about what might happen. And really little did I anticipate what would actually happen with the tragic insurrection. And after I did that, I was like, was I overreacting? So I'm just going to double down on that for tomorrow and send our thoughts out to the people who live in DC and the people who are genuinely trying to have our inauguration be a peaceful transfer of power. I also really want to comment about, I hope maybe some of you were able to watch the memorial for the coronavirus crisis this evening, and that was from the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool. If you were not able to watch that, I encourage you to try to find it on replay. There were 400 lights for 400,000 dead from coronavirus. And this is the first time since the pandemic that there was any acknowledgement of the many, many people who died alone, unable to be comforted by family as a result of this pandemic. It was very emotional for me as a human being and as a nurse. I thought it was really beautiful that a nurse who is a nurse in a coronavirus unit named Lori Marie Key sang Amazing Grace. And throughout the pandemic, as she cared for people who were dying alone, she would sing to them and she would sing Amazing Grace. And so, I mean, I come to this meeting tonight very distracted. And I'll be honest about that. Like, I'm always like, want to be all in, but I'm very distracted by the reality of what's going on, by both what's happening in our country, but also the immediacy of this pandemic for our team. And it's here, you know, it's just right here. So I hope that your thoughts are going out to everyone who's affected. And I want you to know, if I seem a little bit distracted, it's because really my focus is my heart's full of thoughts for what's going on and what's going to happen tomorrow. So thank you.
Thanks for that, Lisa. Yeah, very, very important. And, you know, I think we're going to talk about some things today that will recognize that. Do we have any other announcements? Laura?
I'd just like to recognize Bomani Moyenda, who received the Community Peacekeeping Award. He had a little bit of mixed feelings about it, but I think everybody agrees it was well deserved. He's a leader who seeks peace through justice, and he's been a wonderful example, and especially with his nurturing of youth leadership around anti-racism. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, Laura. And, you know, I did want to say, yeah, I also wanted to congratulate Bomani Moyenda for getting the Peacemaker Award for the Village. And, you know, I know one of the comments I made is that he's my kind of peacemaker. I like that Bomani shakes things up and challenges the village. And, you know, we've had a great collaboration in the past, and I'm really looking forward to stepping up our anti-racism activities in the future. I also want to say in general, I'm so thankful for the organizing committee around the MLK Junior Day events. The march was great, well attended and really powerful. The you know, virtual experience was incredible. And, you know, there's a link to share for that, but it was really powerful. And I particularly wanted to highlight, it was Jocelyn Herring, one of our students who was one of the essay award winners, who really grabbed onto the theme of where do we go from here? And her message is, here's where we go. And she talked about forgiveness and prosperity. And I think there are some other things we need to do as well, but those two things are really resonating with me as we think about being in recovery mode. And yeah, overall, once again, always my favorite day in Yellow Springs. So thanks for highlighting that, Laura. Any other announcements? Okay, I just have a few more things I want to mention. One of those is, and this will be on the Village Facebook page, but for those of you that aren't aware, the Walk Bike Ohio statewide active transportation plan draft is out, and they're looking for comments from everyone across the state until the end of February. And Philip's going to make sure that's on our Facebook page for you to participate in that. I think everyone knows that the Village was lucky to be one of the 6 recipients for the active transportation planning on a local level. The state level plan really highlights accessibility and equitability. And those are things I think are really important when we think about walking and biking and trails. The other thing I wanted to mention is really just a huge thanks. And it's kind of in line with what Lisa was talking about. Another aspect that we're distracted about is, just how COVID is hitting hard right now. And our Village team has really stepped up. Some of you know that, Judy's been out for non-COVID related issues. And the fact that we had an agenda, have a packet, have all the things that were brought together for this meeting. I'm really impressed with how Josue helped to bring the team together. We've got Raven, we've got Brianne, we've got other people in the mix, and we really appreciate helping to make sure we can move these things forward. Last thing I want to talk about, and this is where we can bring up a picture. Many of you know Ed Dressler, a villager and someone who recently passed. And I just wanted to highlight a few things about Ed, because if you didn't get the opportunity to interact with him, he was always so excited about the trails. And in fact, many have credited him with being the reason that we have the nation's largest paved trail network. So Ed was, I believe, the first director of the Greene County Park District, which is now Greene County Parks and Trails. And I've heard stories about Ed walking around with trail maps on the backs of Post-it notes or napkins. And that was the way he advocated. He would just, bring these ideas up to people, and he was so engaged and so excited about the potential for trails for walking and biking around Greene County and around the region that you couldn't say no. So I do want to mention, for those of you that knew Ed or want to honor him, on February 6th from 11 to 1, he's going to be at Lytle right here in town for honoring him. And then they are going to have the procession on the trail. He's going to be put to rest in Xenia. So there are more details about that for anyone that wants them. But, Ed Dressler was an amazing guy. Really represented our village values and did so much for the region. So Ed, we know you're looking down and thinking about how happy trails make people. So with that, I'm going to move into the
Brian, I have one more thing. I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me?
Of course, please.
This is maybe a commission update, but I want to get it up in the front of the meeting for those of you who aren't going to make it through to the bloody end. You may have noticed that there are some new banners out downtown. This is an Art and Culture Commission project. It's called Protest Banner Project 2021. We started planning it in 2020, but we delivered it in 2021 thanks to community members and the National Afro-American Museum and Cultural Center and Antioch College and the Chicago Women's Graphic Collection and the Yellow Springs Village team. These are reproductions of protest and activism banners that were actually part of people in town and in those various sources that have been used in protest and acts of activism. And, you know, we're in Yellow Springs are known for this, right? We've been demanding social change in support of critical issues for a long time. So we see this as the first round. So please watch social media and the newspaper. There'll be an article about this. If you have banners or posters or anything that you've used over the decades that you would like us to highlight, please either contact me at L. Krieger at the Village or Judy Kintner at the Village, because we would be so delighted to have your banners and your posters and things like that brought into this display, because once we have them made, they're durable artifacts and we can post them over and over again. And we feel like this is a great time in January and February, you know, kind of the winter doldrums, to really highlight all that Yellow Springs has done over the decades. So I just really wanted to highlight that and let you guys know what you're seeing out there on the street. Thanks, Brian. Sorry, I didn't think of it when I first had the floor.
Hey, I'm glad that you mentioned that, Lisa. And I'll say, you know, not only has the first round of the poll banners been impactful, but it was just so cool on, you know, yesterday to say, let's all gather in front of the Black Lives Matter street banner. So great work to the Arts and Culture Commission and all the other organizations that have been supporting that. All right, we are moving into the consent agenda, and we have one item, which is our minutes from our last meeting on January 4th. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move.
Second.
Okay, and Brianne, if you could call the roll, please.
Hausch,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
But on the point of the minutes, I don't know if council got my email regarding division of the clerk's duties during Judy's absence, but we are going to need to swear someone in as a deputy clerk in order to attest to the minutes.
Okay. And so is that something we're going to add to the agenda right now then, or?
I'd like to ask that that be added to the agenda, yes.
So that's a nice segue into the next part, which is reviewing the agenda. All right. So, okay. So one item is we need to appoint someone to contest the minutes. And I think, Brianne, did you have some ideas about, we need to think about kind of more broadly about who we're appointing to do what? Is that?
Sure. Again, the attesting of the minutes, Raven prepared the minutes for the last meeting. And if we're going to have a division of the clerk's duties as we're able to manage them, although, you know, none of us can fill Judy's shoes, if we have a division of 3 of the duties that are assigned by the charter to the clerk, you know, we want to be able to do those to the extent we're able. So my suggestion in the email to council on Friday was that Raven continue to prepare and attest to the minutes once council has approved those. That as far as signing legislation, that would be something that council could assign to the village manager. And for responding to public records requests, that's something that I would be reviewing a large percentage of those anyway, so council could assign that to me. So council could swear all of us in as deputy or interim or acting clerks for those specific duties that council wants to assign until Judy is able to get back to work.
Okay. Is that appropriate for us to do under new business, or do you suggest a different part of the agenda?
I think normally we would do swearings in right after roll call, so we can do it now. We could do it under new business. It's really council's pleasure.
Okay, let's go ahead and put that under new business then. Okay. Do we have any other agenda items that need to be added, revised, or modified?
Yeah, Brian, I don't see Sarah or Matthew on the line, and that simply could be because we're so shorthanded and they didn't get a call. I know I didn't call them, so I'm not sure they're aware, but and we'll take care of if we need to swear them in before the next planning commission, then we can do that out of the session and then do a ceremonial swearing in.
Okay, sounds good.
Sarah did reach out to me. She's unable to join the meeting. She has a teaching obligation at the same time. So I can coordinate with Brian or and others about a swearing.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I think I see Sean's hand up.
I think
Yeah, it's unintentional. All right. Anything else related to the agenda?
I think there's one item, Brian, I have a request for a presentation for inclusiveness and resilience Yellow Springs.
Yes. So that is something I think we will add to special reports. And I know we have Janetta Sanford here for that. So there are a couple other things I wanted to clarify. Under old business, the item that says 2021 goals update discussion should actually be council retreat agenda. And again, not to leave any surprises, as Lisa kind of highlighted, we are likely going to be discussing postponing the council retreat that's scheduled for tomorrow, but we'll talk about that when we get there. And then, Josue, do we need to add the meeting with the Yellow Spring Schools and Village Council to the agenda?
Brian, I do not have a date for that meeting. I think we did, at the request of council, I did reach out and propose the topics, but I don't have a date. Perhaps we could text Terry and see what we've got in the works. I'm sorry.
Okay, but nothing to discuss tonight.
Correct.
Okay, cool. All right, so with that, then I think we are ready to talk about petitions and communications. Mary Ann.
Yes. We did get a hard copy of New Year's greetings from the Greene County Library to council and the mayor. We also got a communication from Frank Doden from the Planning Commission regarding the process and the vote for their request of parking downtown, change in parking downtown. We got a certificate of recognition from the United States Census Bureau in which we had a higher percentage of self-reporting than Ohio did on the census. Home Inc. submitted information about home repair grants that they are offering to people in town. And we got a very cool brochure that included the banners that are up downtown and information about both who submitted them and how they were used. That was very cool. And that's it.
All right, thanks, Mary Ann. And I do want to highlight related to the census is, we were on the naughty list the last time for under-reporting. So I'm glad to hear that we did a better job this round. And I think, I know Greene County was very, active around this. And I think Yellow Springs also rose to the occasion. So
last year, we were naughty last year and we're nice this year, huh?
Exactly. Yes. All right.
Now, there is room for improvement. We did a lot of effort, and just want to point out that Oakwood had 85% response rate.
All right. Well, all right. We've got to, keep our benchmarks. So All right. And as everyone, we said a million times, the census data is huge for the flow of federal and state dollars to support all the things that make our community a great place to live in. All right. So with that, we're going to move into legislation. And we've got two pieces tonight. The first one is Ordinance 2021-03. And Brianne, we can read that in by title only.
Get off mute here. Ordinance 2021-03, approving editing and inclusion of certain ordinances and resolutions as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances, approving, adopting, and enacting new matter in the updated and revised codified ordinances, and repealing ordinances and resolutions in conflict therewith, publishing the enactment of new matter, and declaring an emergency.
All right. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right.
The rush to the unmute button.
Yes. All right. So, Brianne, maybe you're also the person to explain this legislation?
Sure, this is housekeeping that we do every year when we get with Am Legal to update both the published hard copy of our codes as well as the online version that American Legal Publishing puts out for us. So it's got everything current through July of 2020 in terms of local ordinances that we've updated, and then also anything that tracks state law that was updated by the legislature through July of 2020.
All right. Thanks for that, Brianne. Any questions or comments? All right. Well, it is housekeeping. I'm not expecting it to be controversial, so we will have a second reading and we can vote at that point and do our public hearing as we always do. So with that, I'm going to move to our other piece of legislation, which I'm very excited about and proud of, which is 2021-05. And I believe that Kevin Stokes is going to read that one in for us in full.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Village of Yellow Springs Resolution 2021-05, a resolution declaring Juneteenth a holiday in the Village of Yellow Springs. Whereas the Village of Yellow Springs is committed to be a welcoming community of opportunity for all persons regardless of race, age, sexual orientation, gender identity, ethnicity, economic status, mental or physical ability, or religious affiliation, as well as to intentionally promote anti-racism, inclusion, equity, and accessibility through all policies, procedures, and processes. And whereas the Village of Yellow Springs recognizes the historic significance of the Emancipation Proclamation, which, although signed on January 1st, 1863 by President Abraham Lincoln, did not reach Galveston, Texas until June 19, 1865, 2 months after the end of the Civil War. And whereas Juneteenth was declared a state holiday in Texas in 1980, and a number of other states subsequently followed suit, including Ohio in 2009, through enactment of Ohio Revised Code 5.2247 as Juneteenth National Freedom Day, to acknowledge the freedom, history, and culture associated with the anniversary of the date on which the last slaves in the United States were set free in Texas. Whereas celebrations with prayer, feasting, song, and dance started on June 19, 1865 in Texas, and have become an annual tradition across the United States, honoring the rich history and significance of Black communities, which have been so vital and contributory to in the Village of Yellow Springs, and the triumphs, culture, and achievements of African Americans locally, nationally, and internationally. Now, therefore, the Council for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, Greene County, hereby resolves that Section 1, the Council of the Village of Yellow Springs hereby declares Juneteenth a holiday and encourages local observances commencing June 19, 2021, to promote the historical significance of the date slavery officially ended in the United States through individual and group activities dedicated to reflection, learning, and healing, as our community must continue its efforts to promote the democratic ideas of diversity, inclusion, equity, accessibility, and positive race relations through freedom for all persons. Section 2, this resolution shall go into effect at the earliest period allowed by law.
Thank you, Kevin. And can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. This is a very important resolution for the village, and I really appreciate the work that Kevin and Brianne did to prepare this. Do we have any questions or comments?
Yes, I would like to request that either HRC or the Justice Commission, that we assign some village government commission to begin preparations with other organizations in town, churches, 365, whomever is appropriate, Antioch College, so that, and that day, it happens to be a Saturday in June, that we have the appropriate celebrations to acknowledge that holiday and make it alive for the village.
Thank you, Marianne. Yeah, that is great, and we will follow up on that. Laura, you're mic'd off.
I was reminiscing about, despite COVID, I was able to have a Juneteenth celebration on my back deck, socially distanced, and it was a lot of fun. I just put out a real quick email and asked people to bring something they could perform, a poem, a quote, something that would be important to them around this celebration. So, and it was huge fun, and nobody got COVID, so that was good. But yeah, I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Yeah, and certainly the spirit of the Juneteenth celebrations are exactly what you described, so that's great. Any other comments? So there is one thing I wanted to raise, and my understanding is that it would require a second piece of legislation, is many of the communities, when I researched the Juneteenth recognitions, make this a additional paid holiday for their communities. And I will say that my understanding, and Josue can speak to this, is that we have currently the 10 paid holidays that many governments have. And it's not unusual to add an 11th paid holiday. I'll also highlight that the state bill, I believe it's Senate Bill 334, that passed the Senate, it's now in the House, does also make this a paid holiday on the state level. So I think we should bring it forward at a subsequent meeting as a paid holiday as well. And I guess I'd like to hear any other thoughts or feedback about that.
This is Lisa, and I'm really very happy about this resolution and believe that Juneteenth should be a national holiday. The one question I have, though, has to do with flexibility for the village team. Do they currently have any optional flex days off?
Yes.
Flex holiday?
Yes, each employee has 40 hours of personal leave that they can use however they want. So it's very common that they would take a holiday for their birthdays or an anniversary, and yes, so they do have time that they can flex. That's in addition to the 10 paid holidays that Brian referenced.
Thank you, because I do think that this is an important holiday, and I also understand how much our village employees are juggling. So there was a part of me that thought perhaps this could be an optional holiday, that they could take Juneteenth as a holiday, or another day of their choice. But I would really be, I don't want to take away from my support of Juneteenth. I would be interested in discussion on this.
Mm-hmm. And Josue, just to clarify, so on the personal days, does that come from sick time or is that separate?
That is separate. That is paid time off, and it's a separate allocation and it's tracked separate from vacation time and holiday time and sick leave. Okay. But it is a time that it's use it or lose it, so there's no rollover on personal time, as there aren't any rollover on holidays, only vacation, and that is allowed to be rolled over within some limitations.
Gotcha.
So there's already 5 days of flexible holiday pay.
A personal time off is what we call it. Yes, the flexible holidays.
But not vacation.
Well, the personal days could be used for whatever they want. They can combine it with vacation. Employees are able to combine it with vacation. They're able to combine it with any other personal time off. And it's separate from sick leave in the sense that they can use it in any way that they want, while sick leave has restrictions on what they can use it for.
So Josue, do you want to speak to this, potentially adding an additional paid holiday?
Well, I think it's I'm very delighted to hear the conversation. I grew up in DC and grew up with Emancipation Day being a holiday, and Juneteenth being observed. So I'm very familiar, and I'm excited that we're having this conversation. From a management perspective, this obviously creates a productivity challenge, and that's something that we will work around with. That's a great incentive for employees. It helps not only recognize the efforts of past generations and how much has been fought to gain equal rights. It is also a motivation. It's a motivation. It helps, as we're talking about building anti-racist organizational culture, part of that's infusing the knowledge and the history into the organization. So this is a way to do just that at the organizational development level. So I appreciate you, Council, bringing this conversation. We'll work around the scheduling. We'll work around from a financial perspective, there is no additional outlay for most of the staff as holidays or time off that's factored into their compensation for the year, with the exception of police officers. Peace officers are not able to take holidays because their schedules are their schedules, and they have to work the days that they're assigned. So instead of taking the holidays off, they get paid for those holidays. So that's the only financial impact that I anticipate.
Yeah, I'd like to add certainly my support to doing this. And actually where I thought Lisa was going with that paid time off, I just wondered if it would cause too much of a revolt if you reduce that to 4 days, then make Juneteenth a holiday. But I guess when you look at the numbers, I'm just wondering, you said those days the PTO days don't roll over. Do they all get used every year, typically?
As with every organization, there are people that are really good at using their time, and there's others that are terrible at taking vacation time. Johnny's terrible at taking vacation time. I had 3 weeks of vacation time that I didn't use in 2020 for obvious reasons. But like any organization, we have the full spectrum. I think somebody agrees with me. We got the full spectrum.
Right. Yeah, the cat definitely agrees. Well, anyway, like I said, I would support doing it, and the resolution I think is great and appropriate. But as a business, as an institution, that's really, as far as this goes, the village putting their money where the mouth is, as it were, to move forward with doing something a bit more substantial.
Well, I will say, and as the other point of view, I think that we are quite generous with our staff 10 holidays and 5 personal, so essentially 3 weeks of unpaid time is plus whatever else people might have in terms of vacation, I think is very generous. And I don't think staff gets Martin Luther King Day off, do they?
Oh, we do. We do.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay, good. Good. So I'm less supportive of it, not because I don't think that it isn't important, but I'm just concerned about finances. And then I guess if we're going to do that, then would we do Indigenous Peoples Day as well, which is certainly as important, I think. I mean, you know, our indebtedness to the Native Americans whom we slaughtered and took their land. But maybe we should do that too.
From a cost perspective, I ran numbers based on our conversation with Brian previously, and we're looking at about a little over $8,000 that it will cost us based on our current staffing level.
Okay.
And that's a mix of outpay and productivity.
8,000?
The full load for the hourly rate is 8, and so I combine productivity and the financial impact of what we had to pay. There will be some services we would have to pay. So an example for water and sanitary plants, we have to staff them. So there is a cost there, but not for the majority of staff. Talk about the 50 employees, we've got about 21 employees, and not all of them are full-time in the police department, that do not get holiday pay. So for the commission officers, they do get they get holiday pay instead of being able to take the holiday off. So we will be having to pay about all the commission officers in the police department.
Oh. And then what about what happens with the people that have to work that aren't in the police department?
The individuals that have to work, so if they have to come in to work, say like the sanitary service and the water treatment facility, they are paid when they work on a holiday, they get paid ×2. That's overtime. If they come in on the weekend on Saturday, that's time and a half. So, but holiday pay, if they have to come in, it's overtime at 2 hours, 2 times the hourly rate.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah. I have some more thought.
Okay.
So a holiday, holy day, at least let's say it means some kind of sacredness, some kind of very important. So if it's a very important day, I'm thinking rather than just sort of like people staying home and watching TV or playing golf or whatever it is that they're going to do, it seems like even if we're going to do this, it's even more important that the village government commit to sponsoring some kind of program, ceremony, whatever, in acknowledgement of this sacred day. Not just sort of, oh, I get another day off.
Certainly, we can sponsor an activity to honor the event. It is challenging to required employees to attend a function during a holiday. We couldn't make it a requirement. I would have to connect with Brianne about other ways of having service days, because there are ways that an organization can designate day or certain hours towards activity, say volunteering or another form of community service. But that would not make it a holiday. it would be some sort of government or organizational sponsored event that employees would be expected or required to attend. And that would be a separate function. Brianne, any initial thoughts on that? I know we're just exploring.
Not initially. The last time council added a paid holiday with an amendment to the personnel handbook was 2018. So I'm going to have to, again, connect with Josue as far as if council wanted to add a paid holiday, not just what the financial impact would be, but what are some of the legal ramifications in terms of encouraging activities around that holiday. Of course, this would be a secular holiday where some of the federally recognized holidays are not. So we would, of course, want to have those discussions.
This doesn't need to be, I don't need to belabor this. I'm just putting out that idea.
Yeah, those are good ideas. So any other comments? Okay, so, clearly this, paid holiday is a separate discussion, but bringing it back to designating Juneteenth as a holiday in the village. Brianne, if you could call the roll, please.
Hausch,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
McQueen,
I'm going to abstain. I don't want to vote against it, but I'm not comfortable voting for it either.
Stokes.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not voting to make it a paid holiday at this moment. We're just voting to recognize it, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
Marion,
okay,
because
thank you.
I'm
Thank you. Change my vote.
Yeah.
What is your vote, Marianne?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
And I thought I made that clear when I called the
Maybe
vote.
you did, but my brain is
I understand. So
locked in here.
good.
Resolution passed unanimously then.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, and very exciting. Okay, so we are now going to move into citizen concerns. This is the time on the agenda where we'll entertain any comments up to 3 minutes that are about items not on the agenda. So do we have any citizen concerns? All right, I saw Kellyanne.
I am here.
Okay.
Hi, Brian.
Hey.
Hi. Hey, I've had the honor of being part of the Justice System Collaborative Committee since its conception in September. We currently have on average between 12 and 15 participants, which is much lower than the 20-ish that we had from the beginning. We've gone from 6 active subcommittee groups down to 3. Of those 3, only 2 have met in the last few months. I'm concerned that as participation dwindles, I'm hearing the same frustration from numerous members, but especially from the subcommittee champions. No one has the resources available to poll members and schedule meetings. In addition, several community members are unable to attend due to the meetings only being held during normal business hours. So I'm asking the council to continue to show your support of this committee by designating a resource or resources within the village offices and to provide whatever funding or resources needed to do so. And that future meetings and times fluctuate to include those that work during normal business hours. I think we can all agree that the work being done by the JSCC is valuable and needed, and I really hope that the village and management will be able to support us in our continuing effort. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kellyanne. Much appreciated. I like that feedback, and that's good for us to reflect on. Any other citizen concerns? All right. And also, I appreciate Kellyanne and others' dedication to the JSCC. There's been a lot of great work, and it's work that we want to continue. All right, we are going to move into our special report. And I saw Kanetta, camera on, and it's good to see you, Kanetta. So I am going to hand it off to you. Kevin, I don't know, do you want to, maybe Kevin, you want to introduce this and then hand it to Kanetta? Thank you.
I will. Thank you, Brian. Well, if we all remember, it was about a month ago where we had in the packet a one-page overview of the inclusive, resilient Yellow Springs, livable, equitable, age-friendly projects. And that was, again, to just introduce and whet our appetites, if you would, with regard to these two collaborative efforts that are now collaborating. And so I won't go into much detail because we have two folks, at least two folks, maybe three, they're going to be presenting as part of this. And so we won't take up a lot of time. We did request 20 minutes. I don't think it'll go quite that long. And I will take responsibility for not being clear at the last council meeting with respect to keeping this item on the agenda. But I'm glad it's there, and I'm glad we're making space for it. So I'm going to hand it off to Kanetta Sanford, who's one of the Yellow Springs Home Inc. representatives of the group. And whenever, Kanetta, you are ready, Josue is prepared to share his screen for the presentation. Thank you.
Sounds good. Yeah, so Josue, if you'd like to share your screen. We made a little presentation, nothing too fancy. Great. So we are Inclusive and Resilient Yellow Springs Coalition, and we are both the coalition and the Livable, Equitable, Age-Friendly project. So it's a collaboration between us two. And we're really focused on action-oriented steps in order for us to live our values. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so the Inclusive and Resilient Yellow Springs Coalition is a partnership between these two collaborative projects that I mentioned just before. And our mission is to really support the diverse communities that exist in Yellow Springs by identifying and removing barriers to opportunity and success in order to create a more equitable, inclusive, and livable Yellow Springs. So really thinking about, what are barriers to access? What are barriers to opportunity? How do we ensure that all community members here in Yellow Springs have the ability to succeed? That's really what we're focused on. So we can go to the next slide. All right, and so when we really thinking about the why when it comes to this project, we really recognize that Yellow Springs doesn't exist in a vacuum. We have a lot of the same issues that are in existence outside of Yellow Springs in Ohio and Greene County nationally. So we really need to think about how barriers to access work in our own community and how we can use our community organizations to make sure that we relieve and remove those barriers and we uplift the entire community. So really, that mindset and using our local resources to be able to do that really helps us be able to promote inclusion, equity, and livability as a means to become a more resilient community. So tying resilience into this is really important for us because if we recognize that making sure that the most underserved people in our community are served and have opportunity and the barriers to success are removed, that we become a more resilient community and a stronger community for that. Next slide, please. All right, so the who. So obviously there has to be people doing this work. So really bringing these two projects together brings the expertise of a lot of different organizations in order to meet the needs of the community through the lens of the 8 domains. And those 8 domains will be explained by Tony here shortly. But you can see Yellow Springs Senior Center. So that's the organization that Tony is working through for livable, equitable, age-friendly Yellow Springs. We also have the Yellow Springs Exempted School District. So Terry Holden is on our coalition as well, looping the schools in. The 365 project, which Kevin Magruder is looped in with 365 in Antioch. The Yellow Springs Chamber of Commerce. So we have Alex Scott on our coalition as well to be able to communicate with other businesses. The Village of Yellow Springs, of course, we have Kevin Stokes on our coalition, and we're really excited to be able to present this to council right now. Yellow Springs Home Inc. So that's where I'm coming in. Housing is one of the domains, and obviously that's our area of expertise. And then the Yellow Springs Community Foundation. So the Community Foundation is funding phase 1 of Inclusive Resilient Yellow Springs for right now. So we can go ahead and move to the next slide, and Tony will take over for this slide.
I'll just jump in and just mention also that Emily Seibel, of course, is also part of the group representing Yellow Springs. I'm not sure if I heard that name.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tony Dosick. I'm the project director for the other partner, the Livable, Equitable, Age-Friendly Yellow Springs coalition, and we're sponsored by the Senior Center. We're very excited to be working with Home Inc. and the rest of the partners on this very collaborative project. As a livable, equitable, age-friendly community, we join over 1,000 other communities in the United States in building a highly participatory, community-based action planning process on all 8 domains. The 9th domain, which you see here, is included in the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission's livable domains, and is compatible with what we're doing in Yellow Springs. But we're focusing right now on the 8 domains. We are linked to the National AARP, the State AARP, the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, and the Rural Forum, which is a national forum for small communities throughout the United States. Already, we've been approached by a group of community residents to help build plans to restore and rejuvenate Beatty Hughes Park, which is the #1 at the top, outdoor spaces and buildings. And we're working with Village Council and the village manager to make that happen, hopefully starting this year. We've built a strong and collaborative process for eliciting opinions and needs around all of these 8 domains, using local knowledge and knowledge from other livable communities in the United States. We expect to begin next month with what will be a year-long effort to gain understanding through a survey and various activities to elicit community input and build action plans around all 8 domains.
Thank you, Tony. So with those action items, as you can see, we have both short and long-term actionable items. So, I would say we're really looking at this survey as a way to inform the work that we're doing and get the information directly from the source. So community members, especially community members that we're looking to help bridge the gap. If there are barriers that they're experiencing, that's how we're going to be able to find out, is from the people who are experiencing those barriers, but also reaching out to all community members so that we understand their priorities and can uplift from there. So some of the other items that are underway, and Marianne mentioned this earlier with our flyer, is the Carol M. Peterson Housing Repair Grants, which is obviously Domain 3 housing. And the thing about Carol M. Peterson is that it's a really great repair grant to be able to include accessibility, upgrades, or even, you know, any necessary upgrades for health and safety for homeowners. So that's something that is really great. We use local contractors to be able to get that work done. So it is money that's outside of our community that can be invested into our community, and in more ways than just one. It's invested into the housing, and it's also invested by using local contractors. And Tony mentioned the rejuvenation of Beatty Hughes Park, which I think is really exciting. I believe when I was on council, there was a conversation about what to do with Beatty Hughes, and I will never forget that. But definitely hearing that is like, yes, this is a great space. You know, it needs a little bit of love, but that's a perfect project to have. And then also we have the cost of poverty experience that we're going to be implementing. It's virtual this time around. So we got a grant through CareSource to be able to put on the cost of poverty experience. And of course, COVID hit, so we couldn't do it in person. And essentially what the cost of poverty experience is that you essentially live in the life of someone who is experiencing poverty. And it's put on through a group called Think Tank out of Springfield. And usually when you hear something like that, the visceral reaction is like, oh, this is kind of like weird. But what I like about Think Tank is that they actually use the experience of people who have experienced poverty. I'm sorry? Oh, I thought I heard something. Who have experienced poverty, and they hire those people to be able to, you know, inform the work that they're doing. So that was really a big takeaway for us when we experienced the cost of poverty experience, was that, okay, so we already knew that we really wanted to incorporate these ideas and make sure that we include the people who were looking to you know, help uplift, because they're going to know more information about what they're experiencing than we do as community organizers. So this is really a space to watch as these projects link together and work with the community. We're really going to be able to create this space where we bring in more organizations, we look at each domain, we bring in that expertise, and we're really able to remove those barriers, create equity and inclusion, and make sure that Yellow Springs is livable for everyone. You know, that's really what our goal is. And so I think we can go to the next page. So it really takes a whole village. You know, we're not, Tony and I can't do it all by ourselves. Our partner organizations, we can't all just do it. We really have to get out of our silos and really reach out and partner together to get the work done. And I think that that is, you know, at the core of what we really want to do. And Tony, if you want to add anything to that, that would be great.
Just that what's exciting about this is it's so comprehensive, it's so highly participatory, community-based, and collaborative. I mean, those are buzzwords, but we're actually really doing it. And it's exciting. It really is. Daunting, but exciting.
Yeah, and being able to pull all of the organizations together is what really helps build the capacity to be able to do all of this work. And especially seeing the intersections of, you know, when we're talking about access, obviously green space is something that, you know, we in Yellow Springs take very near and dear to our hearts. But what if there are people in our community that are having issues to accessing that green space? I don't know that it's something that that we might think about on a daily basis, but there probably are barriers, especially thinking about accessibility barriers, like physical accessibility barriers. So thinking about how to make that a little bit better, you know, those are all the kinds of things that we want to make sure we're doing, and not just in a siloed way, like, okay, well, that's like, but thinking about, okay, who are the people who are affected? Where can we reach out to them? And then what are the other barriers that they might be experiencing too?
We're happy to answer any questions if there are any, as best we can.
Yeah, I want to say, first of all, thank you, Tony. And Tony, you joined the call a little bit later, so sorry that I didn't highlight you at the beginning. But
That's all right.
yeah, but Tony Dosick has been doing great work. I learned about livable, equitable in my seat on Miami Valley Regional Planning, and was so excited that that Tony and the team picked up this particular initiative. And the fact that like it's becoming even more expansive is really exciting for us, especially as, where I see a big intersection is with the work that we want to do around the justice system and in anti-racism, not to mention, some of the aspects of the socioeconomic piece. So thank you, Tony. Thank you, Kanetta. So do we have any questions or comments?
I will add, there was also another, I think I mentioned this once before, where the virtual cost of poverty experience was put on a few weeks ago. I would encourage, any and everyone that's listening to avail themselves of that when that does come around again, because I think we all would submit that I know what it is when we talk about resilience. We know what it is, to be equitable. We think we know what it is, but I think diving into an experience like that does give you the opportunity, to avail yourself of some other ways of thinking at things that can go a long way, in my opinion, to getting you hooked into wanting to do something different than what you've done already. Also, the group, and Kanetta listed all the organizations that are represented and the people that are in there. We're looking to expand that group by 2 or 3 people, and we will be looking for folks who are experiencing those barriers, various barriers on a daily basis. So we look forward to getting some real world experience and expertise and commentary from those folks. But again, just want to say, when we do come around, when you do hear about the cost of poverty experience, we encourage everyone to do what they can to be involved with that. This presentation is not going to be a one and done. We will ask to come back to council to give updates on a regular basis. We haven't decided how regularly, but we want to space it out just enough to keep the novelty there, but also to keep people engaged and intrigued by the work we're doing. So do look forward to seeing and hearing more from us in the very near future.
I'm very excited to hear what you guys have in the works. Internally, we are looking at affordability ratios. I know one of the things that we have been concerned about are utility rates, and we'll be doing a utility rate study, and we're also looking at how that impacts poverty and affordability challenges. So excited to hear the work that you guys are doing, and look forward to a collaboration as we look at administrative challenges that we see ourselves.
Hi, this is Lisa. I'll also chime in to thank you, Kanetta and Tony, and everyone who's been involved in this. I firmly believe that there's only one way to get things done here, and that's through collaboration by joining together. So I'm really thrilled about this. 2 things come to mind. One is that you should think to avail yourself of any data that have already been collected that might contribute to your understanding of the domains, so that you're not investing time or energy or truly money in data collection where you may already have some answers. And the other thing is, I urge the council to really think about this as we go into planning and goal setting, because to the extent that there's a collaborative team going after some of these things, we can help with the lift, but we don't have to drive the lift. So I think this is a really, really great thing, and I want to thank you all.
Just a quick word, Lisa. Yeah, we've looked at every comprehensive plan, every land use plan, everything. Yeah, we started there. That's where we started. So because we definitely don't want to reinvent the wheel. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? All right, well, again, thank you, Tony. Thank you, Kanetta. And I will say it's a great segue into our old business, because I mean, this collaboration piece is, very prominent as we're looking at finalizing our priorities for 2021 with our village goals. And in fact, I was on, Mary Ann was as well, a conversation a couple hours ago where we were talking to a few folks about exactly this project and where that intersection is with some of our village goals. And I really appreciate that Lisa highlighted that capacity piece, and, working with folks that are already, moving these initiatives forward is huge. And so that's a nice also transition into our update about meaningful anti-racist actions, because, a key aspect that I see in this work is related to some of the other systemic aspects of racism that have been part of the work that we want to do. And, I want to remind folks with the Justice System Collaborative Committee that this is a group designed to funnel all the great work that's being done in the community and championed by folks, and then moving those initiatives forward so that we can make decisions on a policy level, such as decriminalizing the possession of marijuana, because it brings people into a system that is racist and has a lot of other problems. That's led to other initiatives, such as the one that we're currently planning to implement, which is decriminalizing minor misdemeanors and other aspects that, again, address the systemic aspects. There are a few other things that I want to mention that are being highlighted, and I want to reference Kellyanne's comments again. One of the things I was really happy to hear after our last meeting is several individuals that were not exactly clear about how to get involved, that contacted me offline about initiatives that they want to be more active with, such as the community or de-escalation training and some of the other things that are on our list of projects. The other thing that was great to hear from Florence Randolph is that she is able to pick up the work that Angela Allen did around the community sit-downs. Many of you may remember she brought that very close to the finish line, and then she had to leave town, holidays hit, but this is a project around relationship building that, there's been a lot of commitment to just understanding how important that is. And I really appreciate Florence stepping up. She's in a perfect position to get that across the finish line. I wanted to mention, I had thought about this before Kellyanne presented tonight, that we will look at, now that we've moved our JSCC meetings to once a month, sending out another contact to see what the best time is to maximize participation. We are targeting those meetings between the first and second council meeting every month so that we can report out at these second council meetings. And the other thing that we realized is that those meetings will be much more geared towards the agendas being planned by the folks that are leading certain initiatives. One of the things that is a reality is, when you have a champion behind a certain project, a lot more is going to get done. And so, we want to continue to recognize that part of the Justice System Collaborative Committee is working with the community to prioritize what those key initiatives should be. Many council members have highlighted areas that they are going to make sure are continuing to move forward. I'm hearing a lot of other community members that want to get involved. And I also appreciate Kellyanne's comments around making sure that we have any support necessary to move that work forward. So that's all in the mix. I'm happy to see that things are still happening, but I do want to end by saying that the JSCC is not a replacement for all the work that, all the organizations like Resilient and Inclusive and Next Steps and YS Speaking Up for Justice and the 365 Project and a myriad of other groups are putting forward. Our goal is to take all that great work, capture it, and figure out how to move it into policy in line with village values. So with that, we'll have a lot more to talk about in February. I know that the minor misdemeanors initiative is going to have some progress by then and a few other things. But I do want to move into the next item on old business, which is the council retreat. Okay, so actually, I already alluded to it. My recommendation is that we postpone the council retreat. There are a variety of issues that others could speak to, but there have been some new incidents with COVID and some other aspects that I think we're starting to recognize are making it very hard for people to focus on all the things that we want to focus on. And one of the things that we have committed to is making sure the essential services move forward during the pandemic. So I don't know that we need to have a lot more discussion at this point, but if anybody else wants to weigh in, but my sense is that the council retreat scheduled for tomorrow evening would be better placed in a couple weeks. So. And I do appreciate, by the way, if I didn't mention before, Laura Curlis initially brought this up. I have talked to Josue about it, and I've heard other references during this meeting. So, Laura, did you want to say something?
Oh, just, the staff is dealing with a lot right now. I would personally really love to have Judy back for the retreat because I think she just brings a lot to the table besides her excellent organizational skills. So, I don't know what that timing is, but anyway, thank you for considering that, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Any other comments?
I would also like to have it delayed. And I would like for there to be a way for council and staff to be thinking of what we think are maybe what we would like to see as the priorities for 2021, knowing that COVID is there whether we want it or not. And maybe that people could put their thoughts in writing and we could create one document. I know we can't talk about it in between council members, but I would be enjoying to at least read about what other council members and staff think. We could maybe make a document. I think we can do that, right? Send it out. It could be in the next council packet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
So that I want to know what other people are thinking. I submitted something. Laura submitted a pretty extensive something in terms of goals. I'd love to see more prioritization and also, as I said, with staff.
Right. And I do know, as I know Josue was about to jump in, is that, the staff, the village team has been working on 2021 goals. I've seen the documents, I've seen the evidence, so I know that that is something that they've been actively preparing for. Josue, before you jump in, I saw Lisa next. Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with the idea of postponing. Irregardless of that proposal tonight, I had a process question because we were working from that table, the color-coded table. We had ideas. We discussed those. I don't think I've seen another cycle of that. Now, 2 council people have submitted separate documents. I didn't realize that that was what was being asked. And so I mean, I see a value as a person who's worked a lot in goal setting, that you have like convergent thinking and then divergent thinking and then convergent thinking. And I get that, but I think it would be helpful just to keep us moving along the road if we understand where we are in that process. Like, are we right now, if we're going to postpone, should what we be doing being divergent thinking? In other words, we each all just completely submit our own like vision, or are we still going back to that more convergent document that we had before? So yes, I'm completely for postponing for a number of reasons, but I think from a process perspective, if we're going to move ourselves forward, we need to know what we're going to do, what the next steps are, and what the structure of that might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are good comments. I will say, you know, the document that was in our last packet was a reflection of what Marianne and Laura submitted, as well as, you know, what council talked about in the last meeting in December. You know, that being said, you know, we can definitely think more about, you know, how we ultimately get to those priorities. And, you know, be great if there was some pre-work to help with that, because, you know, already we've got like lots of things that could be thrown on the list. But I will say that last 2021 draft goals document was a reflection of what was expressed in the meetings in December. Josue?
Thank you, Brian and Lisa, for that. I want to share some background on our meetings. We've had several meetings to talk about what are the pressing items that we need to address as an administration, and they cover a variety of issues. As we have shared in previous council meetings, we're looking at infrastructure, we're looking at innovation and strategic development, as we also look to improve the efficiency and productivity of the organization through HR management and capacity building. So those are the three main buckets of areas that we're working on from a function perspective. And a lot of our work, not most of our work, is geared to fulfilling the goals from, and this connects with Lisa's process question. It connects with the goals that have already been outlined in discounts with council. And at the request of Marianne, we've looked at where are the linkages for those goals. So for the goals and the action items, how do our projects and items enable the activities of other goals, or have a multiplier effect across different functions. So that's the work that we're focused on and look forward to presenting to council. Well, we've already started projecting some of the priorities for the administration. A good example for me, top of the list is looking at reducing our water loss ratio from 36%. We want to get down to under 30%. Be great if we can accomplish 25% within the next 16 months. That would save us a lot of money, and that, you know, has an effect across the entire infrastructure. So that's an example of what we're looking at. That helps us solve a couple of problems: the infrastructure challenge, the affordability challenge, and the climate challenge, being better stewards about our precious natural resources. So we'll look to create those linkages. However, having said that, I am happy to see that a lot of our goals and action items have made it to the various documents already. I saw Laura put a lot of the goals that and actions items that we're working towards already on a list. And so I'm excited to see that you all as a body and individually are thinking or digesting the work that we've been talking about and incorporating that into your goals.
And Josue, I think that's an excellent point. Is, you know, it's not like there are no goals out there. You know, most of our goals are multi-year goals. And you know, again, not only is there plenty of work just to keep the lights on and the water flowing, but I know a lot of things like the broadband and the affordable housing and, you know, implementing the comp plan, utilities, these are all things that are in the works. So, I think the ultimate point is we want to make sure we're aligned as soon as possible, but it is something that can wait.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So,
excellent point, Brian. And a lot of things that we're addressing now they're not new things. COVID it's a newish thing, right? We've been dealing with it for 10 months, and there's a lot of work still ahead, and there are other challenges. But a lot of our work are things that we've identified, various people have talked about over the years, and we just need to get doing.
Yep. Okay, so I think, and I saw Kevin's comment in the chat, so I think we're all on the same page. And at this point, I don't think we need to discuss a date for rescheduling. We know that we will do that in the near future. I will say one item that we had said we were going to talk about at the retreat about council rules and procedures will be on the agenda for February 1st. So I want everybody to be prepared in that meeting to talk about those issues. And then we'll keep everybody updated about the status on 2021 goals. Laura, I saw you mic on again. Did you have a comment?
Oh, just it's important to me on the council rules. The events in Washington certainly have shown us that political speech, it can be dangerous, but it's also very precious to people. And I just want to think about what the First Amendment law is currently related to political speech. That's where council people differ from staff. And I just think we have to be careful about protecting democratic values in everything we do. Thank you.
Yep, thanks. And we will definitely have that discussion. I mean, as you said, recent events had highlighted, how toxicity and disinformation can be a problem, but we definitely want to preserve freedom of speech in all the ways that we can. Okay, any other comments? All right. So last old business item is about our joint meeting with the Yellow Springs schools. Josue, do we have any updates on that?
Yes, Brian, I've gotten word from Terry that the school board as a body is interested in having the meeting. We've shared our topics, and they would like us to propose some meeting times that they can respond to. So I don't know if this is the right venue for us to look at some dates. I know we're all got a pretty busy agendas. We could work offline to send out a doodle poll or a calendar survey to survey what would be the best time for council members.
Yeah,
Is this envisioned as an all-council meeting, all members of both bodies, or a subcommittee?
It will be both bodies. So it will be a formal meeting, a joint meeting of the two bodies.
And I know a primary reason for the meeting is related to the Agraria Trail property. But there are some other issues that could potentially be topics for that agenda. And, I think, Josue, I agree, let's do that offline. This might also be a good opportunity to figure out a more efficient way to come up with a meeting time. And so maybe it is doodle poll or something along those lines, but we haven't really employed that before. So maybe we try that this time.
Yes, and the other thing too that we have is council members have access to our Exchange server. I know Lisa relies on calendar function for a lot of her scheduling, so there could be a way that council calendars could be merged into their Exchange calendars, and then Raven and the team can do their magic in finding the time that fits for everyone and sending it out.
If we can coordinate sharing our calendars, that would be great. I mean, that's certainly how I do it in my professional job. So let's see what we can do. I mean, I think, any progress in being more efficient about scheduling those meetings would be great.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so then I think we're going to move into new business. And the first item we have on new business, well, actually, let's go ahead and insert the proxy discussion. that Brianne brought up. So Brianne, do you want to just kind of describe again the proposal for covering Judy's duties?
Sure. The proposal that we've come up with is that Raven would continue to prepare the minutes and attest to those minutes once council approves those, that the village manager would be designated to sign and attest to legislation that's approved by council, and that any public records requests would be handled by me, because most of the time I have to review those for redaction anyway.
Mhm.
So as far as whether you're calling us deputy clerks or acting clerks or interim clerks or proxy clerks, that's really council's prerogative, but we would all still be subordinate to Judy. She is not being relieved of her clerk duties. We are just assisting while she's unable to perform those functions.
Gotcha. All right, so does anyone have any questions about the proposal for our, I guess, deputy council clerks? Okay, so then Brianne, is there a swearing in that needs to happen tonight, or what do we do with that?
You can basically tell us that you are deputizing us as clerks, and we'll perform those functions to the best of our capabilities.
Okay, excellent. Josue, you mic'd on. Did you have something to say?
No, just check my mic, but I like the auxiliary title.
Yes, you can add it to your resume. So, all right. Well, then, and should we take a vote on this, Brianne, or?
Again, it's really council's call, because there's nothing in the charter that specifies how it has to be done. So if you want to do it as a roll call vote, I can call the vote to do it. And it's really up to council what title to give us.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to propose that we appoint 3 deputy council clerks, and that would be Raven for attesting to the minutes. And she's also been doing a great job with getting those minutes and packet together and helping with the agenda. Josue with signing legislation and otherwise being the witness to those, and Brianne for handling record requests. So Brianne, let's go ahead and do a roll call on that.
Second.
Okay.
Curlis,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
I don't know if you called me, but I'm a yes too. So, all right. So then our other item of new business is to talk about the recommendation from our planning commission to eliminate off-street parking minimums in our B1 downtown district. So I believe, Denise, I'm handing it over to you.
Okay, I gave you a report. Frank Doden is also online tonight in case he wants to say anything. But it's something that has come up for a while with Planning Commission. It has been discussed. We just often find ourselves having to reuse the same existing public parking lots to justify the parking minimums required in B1. It just seems like an exercise that really doesn't benefit. It doesn't allow for any creative thinking about how someone might consider an alternative. So we thought rather than having those parking minimums in the B1, we would just require that they automatically have to come up with a plan for parking. And you know, someone may be able to. I think it's going to be very difficult in downtown to do much with what we have there, with the way the buildings were built. They were built zero lot lines in some cases, and there just isn't parking available. But there are some places around town where there are private parking lots near downtown, and there could be some relationship established between, you know, a future larger venue or some other kind of creative relationship. But Planning Commission just wanted to remove it for just specifically the B1 area. And I don't know if Frank wants to say any more about it. We've just had several cases. I think Frank hit upon a couple of them. I mean, the big one was the Herondale Salon, but we had Trailtown Brewery. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, and I think it even came up with was it the Green Canteen as well? Just basically just about any time we've had just about any time we've encountered some sort of a conditional use application or something for downtown, anything downtown. Parking has always been this weird stumbling block because the way the buildings are structured and the streets are laid out. You know, if they have any employees and any customers, they're not going to have enough parking spaces according to the current code. So that's based on having several of those experiences over the years on Planning Commission, and it coming up as a topic several times. We finally had a good discussion on it at, I believe, what was it, the November meeting, and made the recommendation then to council.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Denise, do we have the B1 map that we can share on the screen to highlight?
Yes, I think, Raven, I sent that to you. There's a zoning map, but it has a specific downtown area. Oh, Postway, you've got it. Yeah. So if you see that downtown. So that is an updated map that now has been updated. So it no longer includes what council recently rezoned on Limestone Street.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the B1 area there.
So that would include anything along the Little Miami Scenic Trail in that area, is that right?
Just in that, yes, in that area.
Okay. And can we bring it down to Dayton Street?
Dayton Street, it ends at the corner cone.
And what about, how far does it carry over?
It goes, in B1, it goes up to where, let's see, it goes down Railroad Street about halfway.
So it doesn't get to Millworks?
It does not get to Millworks, although that's in a future plan to actually have the B1 extend to Millworks. It would make sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So Denise, did you want to highlight anything else before we open it up for questions and discussion, or?
No, I just say that most cases, when it's retail uses, they're permitted and they roll over and there isn't any plan for that. It's usually when it kicks in is when it's the use has changed, is when they're coming for a conditional use hearing. And that's what happened at Trailtown, where it went from being a restaurant to a brewery. So that kicked in that use change.
Mm-hmm. So under this new, so Trailtown would not have any off-street requirements if we updated the zoning code. Is that right?
That's true. They only had a few spaces to begin with on their property anyway. So, what the code says is that, if you're 600 feet in the downtown area from any parking facilities where they would be allowed to park, which includes our public, then that can be counted. The thing is that we're using the same facilities where there's already existing parking taking place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any questions or comments for Denise or Frank or Josue?
This is Lisa. For me, I think the last thing that Denise said is a critical consideration for me. So for example, Green Canteen, it was already a kind of a storefront business, a different purpose, but, is only going to generate a certain amount of traffic. Arguably, the new brewery, which was already a restaurant. I guess where I get kind of hung up, if you talk about removing it entirely, and then you think about, for example, the very, very significant project of the hotel, right? When Mr. Hammond put the hotel in, if there had been no parking minimum, I mean, if somebody puts in a big hotel, there should be parking because that's a significant change in, it wasn't a hotel before, it wasn't a big restaurant before, it was a house, a building on a lot. So I see the expediency of saying we're either going to have them or we're going to waive them. But in my mind, there are some differences that should be considered about scale of scale of project, and I don't know quite how to factor that in, but I think it should be a consideration, even though there are advantages to saying there either is one or isn't one. So I don't know if there's a way to have some tiering to say if the impact is greater or different than something, that then some parking requirements kick in. So I don't know the answer, but that's what I'm thinking about regarding this proposal.
So what we were thinking is you remove the parking minimums and you have to come forward with a parking plan. You're not just saying, oh, well, the parking minimum says this and we're close enough to that. And then we don't really get anything. Instead, by not having parking minimums, we're asking them to, okay, if you're building a hotel and it's got 32 rooms, what would you expect would be the number of vehicles for guests? What do you expect your employee base is going to be? And those kinds of things. And then where are you going to do this on this property? And if not on this property, where else are you going to do it? And that's what we want to do, is we want to kind of force that into a document that they really have to think about and put some time into. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, just related to that, are we asking them or requiring them with these alternative plans? Because everything I read sounded like we're recommending it and we want it to happen.
Yeah, the word that was used in there was encourage, but you can change that word to must. I mean, that definitely, it could be stronger. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it ought to be a bit stronger, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, it doesn't have to be a negative, but certainly it does force the folks who are opening a business to at least think about it, and it doesn't have to be gospel. It's just, this is what I think is going to happen. This is what I expect, for staffing, and on average days we expect to have this many customers in, and again, make it a requirement. And it will be whatever it becomes. But I think just having anything less than that, I think we'll find ourselves in a bad spot somewhere down the road.
Yeah. I mean, the parking minimums are a nice guide, but I mean, like the hair and nail salon one, that was kind of a ridiculous example of overkill. I mean, I doubt that they would ever need 40-some parking spaces for that.
So let's talk about that one. And then I saw that the YS News has a question, so you're on my list. But with the hair and nail salon, so 40 parking spaces. So I read the code, and what is it? You need one space for every 2 seats or something? Is that?
It was 2 spaces per station.
Per station. Okay.
And there were 21 total stations. You're talking 5 chairs for hair and then 8 for pedis and 8 for manis. But they call them stations, and that's the way the code reads. It also had a retail area, and then it has an upstairs apartment. So that had to be factored in too.
Huh. And just out of okay, so
Just with the stations, there were 42.
right. Okay, so we waived those requirements, and what was the ultimate conclusion for off-street parking requirement?
Well, I mean, we could have justified it. And it was justified because they had the access to the parking in Keith Alley, and then they were within 600 feet of the parking lot by Subway. I mean, to me, it wasn't really like, it's like this exercise that really isn't allowing for a lot of deep thought about what you could do or.
So did they create a parking plan that indicated which spots they were going to share? And
no, it wasn't a requirement that they had to do that. I mean, planning commission could have come back and said to them, we want a parking plan.
I mean, because I saw that in the code, it says a shared parking agreement is filed. It's D1C. So I'm just wondering, so is that something we don't really do? Is that the? If somebody wants to do that, yes. I mean, we can require it. It's planning commission has to require it, and they haven't exercised that. But now by doing this, I mean, you're basically saying I'd like to see something where it says you just have to have that plan no matter what. Right. Not all cases downtown. I mean, I think with shared parking agreements, it depends on, you could have a shared parking agreement between maybe a bar that happens to be open in the evening and a retail store that's more in the daytime hours. I mean, there could be those kinds of things. And just to understand, so ultimately 21 stations, and this reminds me of the place that's out by the Kroger in Fairborn. I mean, that seems awfully significant, and that's about the size that they have, and they have a big parking lot. So the determination that it wouldn't have a significant impact was that basically we already have enough downtown parking. Is that? I'm not following you. I don't know. I mean, planning commission, and Frank can pop in here too. I mean, planning commission, even with the reduction of 25%, would have otherwise had to deny it. And they didn't want to deny it. I mean, it was something viable for the downtown. It's a hair salon. We don't have one there now. They're doing some other renovations to the building. They didn't want to deny it. So. Right. But I mean, so the discussion around that being potentially a significant impact with 21 stations, what was the discussion? Well, I mean, people could find parking in one of the public parking lots. Okay, so basically, that was what I was asking. And that's what's always used, yeah. And I guess what I'm saying is that is always what is used, is you have these parking facilities for the public. Right. And we talked about this even as a body at Millworks, because you're using the Millworks parking lot, but you have these different businesses in there, and you're still reusing the same parking lot when you're counting the numbers. And how do you get to where we really need to see something a little bit more viable? Okay. And I think we kind of got there. Again, that's, that becomes more of a private owner's concern if they don't have enough parking for that. I mean, because you're going to have customers that are not going to be happy if they can't find a parking space. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's potentially a public concern too, but that's helpful. Yeah. All right, I'm going to let Yellow Springs News, and then Laura, I saw that you had mic'd on, so I'll let you comment next. All right, so I don't know if we have Megan today. Is that?
Yeah, hi, Brian.
Hey, Megan.
Thank you. I guess I'm similarly trying to understand how this helps the issue of parking. It seems like when you are if you just allow people to count the same spaces, it's kind of like death by a million cuts. I'm just wondering, in the parking plans, the kinds of things that you'll be looking for. And I'm wondering too, if there's maybe some kind of payment in lieu of parking that facilities could kind of pay a fee that would then be used to develop more parking in the downtown area. kind of similar to the incentive program that you're thinking about for water, low impact development. So yeah, if you could just lay out some more detail about the plans, I'd love to hear that. Thank you.
So we really want to see something we're creative that someone can come up with. I mean, right now, like I said, it's sort of this exercise that you go through and they can meet that. Most anybody can meet that with what's available nearby. But we're not really we've not done any kind of parking audit to really see at different times of day what capacity is the parking lot at the John Bryan Center filled versus the Railroad Street versus the subway and various times of day. But I don't know how creative somebody could be. I mean, they might be able to come up with something that really out of the box that works. They could have another property. They could shuttle people. We could have something that taxis people from an empty parking lot, maybe on the west side of the community. And, you know, it could be used for that business when that parking lot isn't being operated. And that could be some sort of collaborative relationship that they could come up with that business owner. Well, that's what we're looking for. But that's an interesting idea for a payment in lieu. Not that that's going to resolve the problem right now, but it would definitely be something that, you know, could help for the future.
And it might support some of those activities that you described. Yeah, I think that's interesting as well.
Yeah, we'd still require the parking plan, but okay, you've got this parking plan and it doesn't quite meet what we want. You have that fee in lieu.
Right.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. Laura?
Well, and I've said this before, and I have a whole different view about parking. I think there's a psychology of parking, and that is everyone wants to park within eyesight of the front door of where they want to go. And even parking on the other side of the Presbyterian Church on Walnut or parking on Elm, even though you're within half a block, 1 block, 2 blocks maybe, is too far. And as Josue will tell you, we've added 69 spots in the past 2 years to the downtown parking. We never fill up Elm Street, you know, in the Winter Street area, you know. So my question is more, do we have enough for people with physical challenges, you know, or do we need to reserve some more spots? Because people who can walk, they can walk, and it's not that far a walk. You know, it's maybe 2 blocks at the most. So I don't view it as a problem. So that's just where I'm coming from.
You know, we've talked about this, Laura, among staff. I haven't talked about it with Planning Commission directly, but adding on to what you're saying, if people were aware where there are locations that you could park with wayfinding signage and maybe a parking lot plan or parking lot map, giving people some other nearby locations. I meet with a zoning group quarterly and was posing that question to them, and one said that there's a company that they have that has signage that says, from this place here at this sign, you're only 5 minutes to the Winds by, you know, walking to the Winds, or you could do kind of cool signage like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could have parking maps that all the businesses could give to their customers to show all the places. We have a whole bunch of places that people could park. They won't be in eyesight of the front door, and they may have to walk for a couple blocks.
Well, and notably, I'll just add to that the wayfinding signage proposal that was brought to us last year that we supported did have parking signage and welcoming signage, and it was also tied to an app that Scott Fife was helping with. So I do love that aspect of this. I guess the other thing, so, a couple things that I think we will need to consider, as we move this conversation forward. One is the language, that says encourage, whatever. And I think I'm hearing a general thought that it needs to be a little bit more prescriptive. The other thing that I had a question about, and it kind of relates to what Lisa brought up, and I liked Megan's reference, is there was reference in the documents in the packet to doing the parking audit later, but I guess I wonder why we don't do that before we change the policy. And I say that because what I'm gathering is that basically all the things that are in the code about having to indicate where your parking spots are and if you have shared agreements and they're on file, I'm guessing that doesn't really happen, and we don't have records like that. So I guess one of the things I want to put out there is I'd like to know, based on a code that we updated in 2014, why these minimums are there, what parking spots we're expecting to have downtown, and then maybe start to make policy changes from there. Especially because, I guess what I'm also hearing is that there's been kind of a policy from Planning Commission to make sure that business can locate downtown. And so we've done a lot with waiving, what's in the code. But I will say, as a side note, there are several projects that have been referenced in this discussion, that would concern me in terms of just abolishing any parking requirements without understanding a little bit better about what our needs are.
I kind of had the opposite sense with that, because I want to see something stronger now because of possible future projects. I really had kind of the opposite thought about that. Just because, you can't just keep reusing the same parking places for what we have.
Right.
So.
And Brian, I would like to weigh in on some of what you shared about why not having these parking plans or initiatives ahead of a policy recommendation. Some of this challenge has been a timing issue. The Planning Commission has had to deal with a lot of these variances, and it was our hope that the parking challenges would get addressed as part of the comprehensive plan. Then in that plan, there were parking concepts and strategies that were proposed, and council decided to do away with them. So I'm sorry to not make them as prominent. I see.
Right. We still have those plans on the record. Yeah.
but nonetheless, I think it signals council's interest at the point at that time that it's not as a pressing issue as it was for the administration. And we want to be proactive about solving those challenges and having those concepts, parking concepts worked on were an important step in the brainstorming in the development of ideas and initiatives. I think there was a notion or a narrative shared that, God, if they were anywhere on paper, that meant that we were going to do them. And that's just not the case. It allows us to explore the ideas further and look at what are the right solutions for our community and to address the resident challenges and the business challenges. But anyway, it is what it is. What happened has happened, and we are eager to address some of these challenges in 2021. Denise has shared some of the insights or the dialogue that we've been having about the park map. We've talked about it in the wayfinding folks. We've talked about it internally doing a full assessment of every parking spot and get creative with what space is available and promote the spaces that we have. We've got a digital layer. We've got a combination of signs that we're thinking about. So we're certainly working towards meeting the parking demands and the challenges.
I'm concerned that this is an endless conversation, and we're have devoted much more than the 15 minutes. And I'd like to find a way to wrap this up and send it, we're going to send it back to Planning Commission. But, you know, we could spend the rest of our life talking about parking, I think. And I'm not sure how much more.
As we have for the past 70 years. But I don't know what the answer is.
Well,
I will chime in there. There is a way for council to say we're going to modify this Planning Commission recommendation and move forward, or we're going to send it back. And that's, of course, to vote on it. And I would say that it's not under legislation for a second reading tonight. But if you wanted to take it to a second reading for action, you could propose the amendment tonight, and that'd be published for the second reading to say there are no minimum parking requirements in the B1 Central Business District. And then based on the discussion from council members, applicants shall submit a plan for off-street parking alternatives, such as shared use private parking. And then as a council find that that is not a significant modification of Planning Commission's recommendation, so it doesn't have to go back to Planning Commission. You can act on it at the second reading. Or you can
I'm going to make that motion that we accept Planning Commission's recommendation with the addition that the business must have a parking plan as described by Brianne.
I mean, so we can make a motion without having any legislation?
Well, you're asking for that legislation when it's published as a second reading, because the charter says you have to have it in the form, substantially in the form that you're going to adopt it or act on it. So that's what you're doing, is saying for the next council meeting, for our second reading, this is how it's going to be published.
But we haven't even done a first reading. So I'm not sure.
That's right. We didn't do a first reading at the last meeting.
The last time it was brought forward, and but
we took it off the agenda. I will just say, like, I mean, we can
make the amendment for first reading at the February 1st.
We can vote on Mary Ann's motion, but I will say, first of all, we haven't spent much more than 15 minutes on this. We had a 15-minute presentation that, you know, has put us a little bit past our agenda. I think we had a great discussion to set this up, to bring it back. So I'm not sure we have anything to vote on, but I don't know. But if we are going to vote on Mary Ann's motion, we can. I don't know.
Well, I would say we would probably want to vote on it at the first reading. To have it as a second reading.
So anyway, but I personally, I think we accomplished the goal in this meeting, was to spend about 15 minutes to talk about different concerns and then be prepared for bringing it back. So, anyway, but I am ready to end this discussion unless there's any other questions or comments. Okay, manager's report.
All right, thank you, Brian. Top of the business. I don't know if, well, you've heard me talk about power poles, and one of the things that we were eager to launch this week was the initiation or the beginning of replacement of 44 poles that we need to replace. Nature got ahead of us. There's a big pole that we needed that was discovered over the weekend as Arbor Care was trimming power lines that had rotted out and was swinging with the winds and not the political winds. So we had to do an urgent repair today and replaced a 40-foot pole. So we started with that the week, considering all the other things we got going on. But we've got an exciting year that we're planning ahead. We've done a lot of meetings around the strategic planning. We've got 6 major overarching goals that fall within the strategic planning and innovation, infrastructure, and capacity building, internal capacity building, and process improvements. So we look forward to our meeting with council. This reporting period, the challenges we've had have been significant staffing challenges. You heard me report earlier about the 4 COVID cases we've had and how disrupted they've been. but we got good contingency plans in place to ensure the delivery of all essential services and continue the work that council expects of us and our constituents expect of us. We continue to do the end of the year reporting that's still underway. We expect to bring the financial reports to council on the first February meeting. Within that, we're going to talk about a revenue report and expense report. So we'll be a bit more intentional in terms of how we lay out information. In the past, we give you all the unaudited financial reports, the full 50-page report. We plan to conduct a presentation at the next meeting. And we label these unaudited financial reports because, as you know, by state requirement, we are audited every year. So the statements that we provide ourselves are unaudited. Final statements come from the auditing team, and they're blessed by the state auditors. As you've received a letter, I believe 2-3 weeks ago, about the state closing out our books for 2019. So those become the final official statements. Anything between that are all that are our internal reports. So we'll have that for next reporting period. We are underway looking at the health insurance renewal. I know this has been a topic of discussion at council and not just council during my tenure here, but in previous previous administrations. So we've got that underway in late January. So we'll be surveying the staff between now and end of January so that we can go out to market and request a proposal for renewal and a proposal for new services. We've changed our health insurance broker. We work with McGowan, who's a premier market player in the region, but we decided to go with Strategic Benefits, who we think will provide a better tailored experience for smaller organizations like us. So that is also in the works, and we expect to come back to council around March with a recommendation. March, April, as has been in the past, and that coincides with our renewal period. The Safe Routes to School project is doing well. We've got engineering plans that have been drafted. We've shared those plans with the schools. So part of our joint meeting with the schools, we anticipate also speaking about right-of-way and the sidewalks. We've encountered an elevation challenge with the sidewalks of the school, and we need support of Yellow Spring Schools to help resolve the elevation challenge by allowing us to move the sidewalks a bit further in on the property. And then we're talking about the Mills Lawn School. Johnny is on the line if you wish to know more details about that. But that's something that we're discussing with the schools, and we hope to work with Terry to find a resolution, and it may or may not be part of the joint meeting that we plan ahead between that we're planning between council and the school board. But wanted to share that with you as it may be a topic of discussion at the joint meeting if we're unable to resolve it prior to. And the rest of my reports in there, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Josue, I have a quick question. Have we been able to keep the hand sanitizing stations filled and maintained?
Yes, Johnny and I were just talking about that this morning. You know, we've had staffing challenge at the Parks and Recreation. We did have the team that were part-time workers that we repurposed their jobs to do that. Over the weekends, particularly long weekends, it can be challenged to keep them filled all the time. So we do see them towards the end of the weekend on Sunday or a holiday Monday that they run dry. But first day of business back in the office, those tend to get refilled right away.
Okay, cool.
So that's a challenge we have on weekends, specifically busy weekends.
Right. Any other questions for Josue? All right, thank you, sir. So next up, any highlights for board and commission report outs?
I have one when the time's right, or if I can jump in now.
Sure.
Library commissions. As you know, library commissions meet quarterly. Our next meeting is February 4th, at which point we'll have the approved minutes from our November meeting. We accomplished, I'm happy to report that we accomplished the goals that we set in the Library Commission, and that was repointing the retainer wall, repairing the handrails, and there were a lot of other improvements that were just neglected over the years, and we took care of those in 2020. We also made some additional enhancements. We added the plasma filtration systems to improve air quality and kill bacteria and viruses in the library. So that's part of the minutes, and I'll share that at the next commission reporting period.
Okay. Anything else on boards and commissions?
This is Laura on Planning Commission. We've talked enough about bringing that parking
Oh no,
back
let's talk about it some more.
No, but we welcome Sarah Sinclair Amend, who's replacing AJ Williams, and Matthew Kirk, who's an alternate. And we thank AJ for his service to the village. He is moving away from the village. Oh, wow. And if you are a aficionado of baked goods, you'll be happy to know your Planning Commission has approved recently 2 conditional uses, one involving the bagel operation out of a home operation, as well as the Blue House bread baking operation. And there's going to be a baked goods establishment in Millworks as well, but that's got to still go through BZA. But anyway, those are some highlights from Planning Commission.
Huzzah, and damn you, carbohydrates.
All right.
I know. Cover your ears.
Minutes.
All right. Anything
I
else?
just wanted to point out that I had included the Yellow Springs Development Corporation minutes. They say draft on them, but they were approved, and I didn't want to make those changes but anyway, I just want people to know they were approved.
Thanks, Mary. All right. Anything else before we talk about future agenda planning? Okay. So let me just highlight that, especially given Judy not being in the mix, please make sure when Raven sends out the draft agenda for the upcoming meetings to look at it right away in case there's something missing. Yeah, I know everybody's doing their best to fill in the gaps, but just let's be more vigilant. And, for example, Laura, I was sorry that your goal recommendations weren't in the original packet, which is why I made sure to have those sent out, and those will be in the next packet. So yeah, so everybody, just kind of stay vigilant. So any future agenda items?
Brian, I have a few administrative things I want to put on the council agenda, and that is we want to bring forth resolutions to purchase equipment that has been budgeted and approved by council, and that includes the vehicles for public works, Bobcat equipment, mowers, and a few other large ticket items that have been approved in the budget.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I don't know if we're going to get to this during our retreat, but I don't want to lose track of the commission, council, structural changes, don't know even what to call it, that we had started, but never really resolved.
Okay. Yeah. I think what we'll do, my thought right now is that for the February 1st meeting, we'll see how much we have on the agenda and potentially bring some of those retreat items into that meeting if we have time. But I also expect that hopefully we can reschedule our retreat for at least by mid-February, but thank you.
And second February meeting, we'll have a council end of year report from Art and Culture Commission.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, I just want to say before we adjourn that tomorrow signals a new day. So everyone stay calm, enjoy the inauguration, and know that we are moving to a better future and out of a really bad past. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.
Be safe.
Bye.
Bye.